Last night, the Vikings took the beating of a lifetime. And whether you like it or not, they have to play the rest of the season. So how do you bring it back together? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast.
You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Locked On Vikings podcast, where we're always trying to learn something new. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vikings your first listen of the day, every single day. This eulogy is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is just the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. What a disaster. Oh my God. This is the first time that I'm getting to talk to you. I didn't get home in time to do the squad show, but I was at the game, hence the slight hoarseness in my voice. That the Vikings lost 37-10 and were beaten like a drum up and down the field. I think sometimes with these really extreme results, like it's always like never as bad as it looks, or it's like you kind of come away from it after some distance and you realize that there was this thing that went positive and this thing that, maybe was a fluke and won't happen again and all this stuff. This game feels different to me. And I'm recording this a couple hours after I got home. So like, I'm not, maybe I'll look at the tape and I'll see that this actually wasn't so bad. But if you're coming to this show looking for the kind of, reasoned centrist opinion on things, you might not find it today. This feels like a game that breaks a franchise in two. Sometimes you feel those losses that you get beat so bad or so demoralizingly. I think the most famous one in everyone's mind right now is the Hail Mary debacle against the Commanders Chicago had last year, right? A game that's just such a kick in the teeth and that you just never recover. This game feels like that. The Vikings are limping through a tough portion of their schedule, both in, they're playing some of the biggest contenders on their schedule kind of all in a row right now, but also from the London trip to the bye week and then doing a tough, Super Bowl defending Super Bowl champions at home and then West Coast Thursday night. It's a tough travel schedule, right? And they looked lethargic. Now, I want to be very clear that the travel thing is not an excuse. If it is one, it's an awful one. But they sure do look like a team that just like wasn't awake. Just a lethargic effort from top to bottom. And through 8 weeks now, not including this game in RESDM, which is not uploaded as of this recording, but I can't imagine it's going to get better. The Vikings are a bottom 5 NFL team. If you pull out that week 3 game, which it isn't necessarily fair to the Vikings, right? That game did happen, but it's also a pretty heavy outlier because all of the other games, the other 6 games the Vikings have played, they've looked bad. They've looked bad for like most of it. And the 2 wins they got were, late rallies and comebacks. But otherwise, they've looked horrible. You can argue that they have had the Bengals game in 2 good quarters. And everything else has been straight up no-show, kind of going all the way back to last year when they lost in Detroit and then in Arizona in the wild card game. This is no longer a team that knows how to play football. They're getting drummed by everyone with half a brain. And I would say now, if I'm one of the teams that did lose to the Vikings, like the Bears or the Browns or the Bengals, I am taking a serious look inward and going, whoa, we really lost to those guys? Those guys are scrubs. This is a dreg of the league. It really feels like that right now. And I'm not just I'm trying not to be like super overreactive to, a rough slump or whatever. But like right now, if you just look at since week 4, right? Since after that Bengals game, the Vikings on defense are bottom 3. They are a bottom tier rush defense. They're the 3rd worst pass defense. Offensively, since week 4, they have the worst rushing offense in the league, and they have a below average passing defense. You're not going to find a lot of teams that hit the Yahtzee of being bad at all four phases on rush defense, rush offense, pass offense. And they're bad at special teams because they are racking up penalties like they're going out of style. This is a bottom 5 football team right now. And I'm not going to sit here and complain for 30 minutes. Nobody wants to listen to me do that. But I want to just, it's really impossible to overstate how poorly the Vikings are playing right now. And it really makes you wonder what they were thinking. How did we get here, right? And I can already hear a lot of excuses coming in. Some of them have merit, but I think they all fall a little bit short, right? Yeah, there are injuries. There's a lot of injuries. And every time you see Justin School get absolutely smoked, you're going, okay, but that guy's not supposed to be in. This sucks, but that guy's not, hopefully, the guy's healthy by now. Well, it's October. We are now getting to a calendar year since Christian Darrisaw got hurt, which is for that ACL, MCL, a full calendar year is the end of the typical recovery timeline. It's 9 to 12 months. We're at 12 months. And Christian Darrisaw still hasn't recovered. Now he's played. He's still suffering from that injury. And he's played a little bit through it. But the whole offseason we spent hearing that Darrisaw was ahead of schedule, that he's doing great. We're super excited. They're targeting maybe week 1. That's, a really fast timeline, but he's doing so awesome and everything's super optimistic. I think we have to seriously ask the question, if the Vikings rushed Christian Darrisaw back from that injury to get him to play 3/4 of a game because the season was going belly up so bad, and did they make that recovery timeline extend? Did they make his injury worse rushing him back and slow down his recovery so now we only have him for 3/4 of every game? And if they did that, we got to really, really, really ask questions about if that was worth it, right? Not only just for the, did you actually get more snaps out of Darrisaw than you otherwise would have, but also just deeply unsafe and disrespectful to your player. So I'm really worried that they did that. I'm worried that they did that with O'Neal, who played a whole Eagles game on a sprained MCL and then has to sit out this game. So you got a whole game of Justin School. Congratulations, everybody. But the unforced errors pile up. And when we talk about unforced errors, I keep talking, you hear that phrase a lot, and you usually think of false starts and penalties or, gimmicky turnovers or these kind of shoot yourself in the foot kind of plays, timeout debacles. That's not even what I'm talking about. I am talking about the unforced error of switching out Blake Brandel for Michael Juergens, who's playing horribly at center. I'm talking about the unforced error of trading away 2 guys on your defense and then having that depth tested, having one of the worst run defenses in the league, depending on how far back, since what week you say, the worst run defense in the league, and trading away your starting nose tackle to start the year, trading away your cornerback depth. Now Jeff Okudah gets a concussion in this game. You have Dwight McGlothern playing. Then you're getting gashed of letting Cam Bynum walk and just thrusting Theo Jackson into that job without any competition, thrusting Michael Juergens into that backup center job without any competition, only to bench him after half of one game, giving absolutely no consideration to the run defense problems that you have until you go up against a strong run team in the Eagles, overly panic about it, take all of your pass defense players off the field, get destroyed by Jalen Hurts, and then hop into this Chargers game completely reeling. This Vikings team is spiraling. And a lot of it is because every decision that they have made, from Kwesi to O'Connell to Flores to players, all of these decisions are falling apart. And I haven't even gotten to the Carson Wentz part yet. Carson Wentz is terrible, but it's kind of like Justin School. It's okay, but he's a backup. He's not supposed to be in. So the idea of, Carson Wentz for the rest of the season, we don't have to worry about, God willing. Kevin O'Connell did say on the podium after the game that when JJ is healthy, JJ will play. And he said that that's always been the case. That's always kind of been what I thought. And I think if you got caught up in the conspiracy theory, you can now rest easy. You soldiers, you may stand down, because it's going to be JJ McCarthy against the Lions, assuming there's no setback. Tom Pelissero is also pretty directly reported, as direct as journalism words can get, that they expect him to be healthy by the Detroit game and be, off the injury report, basically, going into next week of practice. So, as bad as Carson Wentz was, it's not even really what I think we should be talking about right now, because that one will go away. That one will kind of recede back into the shadows, and then you're going to have a young quarterback and he's going to have his mistakes, but it'll be a different character of thing. But when I see, Harrison Smith can't run anymore, man. Like it looks like he's in molasses. Everybody looked like they were in molasses. Were they just tired? Was it just like that? Or maybe the most baffling, unforced error of the whole year to me is that the Vikings didn't practice. I need a minute. Today's eulogy is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Hope you had the emotional hedge out. But hey, now we're headed into a Sunday of football where we don't have a Vikings game, mercifully so. And if you are looking to take full advantage of that, check out FanDuel, where you can bet on real NFL teams and if they will win their real NFL games. If you're new, you can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5 on whatever it is, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. So like a heavy favorite or a super easy alternate line or something like that. As long as it wins, you get $300 on a $5 bet for winning that first bet. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. This eulogy is also brought to you by Rippling. If you are a business owner, you are probably frustrated with software as a service. Honestly, I can't think of a company I've ever even interacted with, let alone worked at, that didn't have some kind of workflow problem going from this app to that app. And you got one for your calendars and one for your meeting schedule and one for this and a budget one. And all of this crap that piles up and this organizational bloat that makes it impossible to get stuff done. That is what Rippling is for. It's a united platform for global HR, payroll, IT, and finance all in one place. It unites your employees, teams, and departments in one system, one place for all of that stuff. So whether you want to run your entire HR, IT, and finance operations as one, or just fill in some gaps in your software stack, Rippling can do it all. And right now you can get 6 months free when you go to rippling.com/LockedOnNFL. Learn more at rippling.com/LockedOnNFL. That's rippling.com/LockedOnNFL for 6 months free. Terms and conditions apply. Okay, moving on with the Locked On Vikings podcast. So this is one of the more baffling things to me. I didn't really think much of it going in, but seeing how the game went really shines a light on the fact that the Vikings didn't practice. I'm going to say that again. The Vikings didn't practice in this week. They did 2 walkthroughs in a travel day. It was a short week, West Coast, coming off the London thing. There's all kinds of again, there's excuses you can make. There's reasons you can be well, it kind of made sense for and I understood it going in that they're all banged up, long physical game against the Eagles. So they're going to try to be careful with stuff. But I'm thinking back, I don't know if I can remember another time where a team just didn't practice. Did a couple walkthroughs and went, that'll be good, send it. How do you install your game plan? How do you put together what you're supposed to do if you're just quarter speed working it? How do you get your timings down? How do you get your zone pass-offs down? How do you get those little details and nuances if you aren't practicing? I don't know. It's help me out. YouTube comments, okay? People who send me angry emails sometimes. Can you find another time where a team just didn't practice? And how did it go? Because 37-10 sounds about right when you don't practice. But it speaks to a grander problem that I have with all of this, right? And I think it kind of washes over all of the little stuff that we spend all this time complaining about. Did they make the right decision at quarterback? Did they, what about trading those players away? What about, trading a pick for Adam Thielen and that's not working out at all? And, or depth chart stuff of what should they or shouldn't they be playing Ivan Pace more or whatever. All of that stuff washes away when you think about the Vikings as a team that just can't help but overthink everything. Everything is so overthought. The personnel decisions like last week against the Eagles where they're putting in 4 D tackles and then nobody can chase down Jalen Hurts. Benching players benching your backup center because your third string emergency center does a little bit okay against the Browns and then keeping it that way for 2 more games. Like I want to hear about how bad that Michael Juergens injury is, because he's still on the report with the hamstring. Maybe it's just like way worse than I thought, but he's like suiting up every game and then just like isn't going in, right? And he did go in against the Eagles. So like it can't be that bad, but I don't know. Maybe I'm just stupid. Like maybe I'm overthinking. Maybe I'm overthinking myself, but like the decision at the beginning of the year when they trade Harrison Phillips, and it's because their depth played a little better than they thought. So they go, ooh, we can eke a little value out of this. And it's just so overthought. You know what normal teams do when they have 7-8 players at a position? They just suck it up and cut one. You just say, yeah, we're cutting a good player. Good problem to have. We're cutting somebody. Good luck at your next team. We'll have you back on the practice squad. If you don't get another job, we'll definitely be interested. We'll let you know. But it's just a numbers crunch and good luck. And they just let a guy out the building and it's okay. They don't try to, they don't trade away the like load bearing guy, like the least replaceable dude on that D-line for a day 3 pick just to say we got a little value, guys. That's what normal teams do. What normal teams do when one player is hurt, when the center gets a concussion, has to go on IR, is they put in the backup center. They don't put in the tackle they drafted who they've moved to guard, who's now playing center for the first time, who kind of did okay. And it's also overthought. From a play calling perspective, it's overthought. It's, all of this pre-snap crap, and then you got a motion, and then we're going to fake a toss, and then we're going to roll the other way, and we've got a 20-yard route that doesn't break off. You can't block that, dude. And this really pissed me off this whole game. Even like going back and looking at some of the moments that I wanted to take another look at, because you don't always get the replay live in the stadium. There are so many plays where the Vikings are trying to get something going, and it's 1st and 10, and they're behind, and they're calling a shot play, and they leave 5 in protection. 5 in protection. No, maybe a chip. No help. Just 5 in protection. You've got 3 backups out there, man. You can't do 5 in protection and then 20-yard shot plays. That doesn't work. But it's overthought. It's, we're going to get an explosive here. It's like, that's what we should be doing. Deep passing, analytically, it's better than shallow passing. But you forget that the people have to do the thing. And none of the people can do the thing. If you want to put that on a t-shirt. The 2025 Vikings. None of the people could do the thing. And that level of overthinking, and that Eagles game really kind of tore it for me, where like they had a problem in run defense and they corrected for it so hard that they created a new problem. To me, that's the sign of a team that's floundering, that's just trying stuff. Let's see if Eric Wilson's given us a spark. Sorry, Ivan, sit down for this one. Let's see if we can put some Tyler Batty in there. See if what'll happen. Let's see if we can try something new with all that, or maybe maybe let's just not run it all this game, because the Vikings generated like 10 yards on the ground before the final garbage time game, and it's one of the worst They had a 0% rush success rate in this game. Did you catch? I'm sorry. If you were, sometimes people listen to a podcast and they space out a little bit or they're doing something else. I need you to put down whatever you're doing while you're listening to this, and I need you to really just internalize that. 0% rush success rate. They could not generate a run that brought them closer to a first down than they were before. That's pathetic. I mean, every part of that is horrifying and pathetic, and I just don't really know what to do with that. But for all the thinking the Vikings have done, for all the extra little bells and whistles they've put on everything, nobody can execute their job. Nobody can win a rep. And the Vikings are getting walked up and down the field by a good Chargers team. They are good. And I know that they were coming off of a weird moment in the crossover. So David was like not that, he wasn't nearly as stoked because they were coming off of getting smoked by the Colts, right? But like that's a team that is right in the thick of everything in the playoffs. And I genuinely think they could go steal a playoff game or two and make a real run if they just stop, Chargersing at the weirdest moments. But that's above anybody on the Chargers. That's cosmic. That's God's decision that the Chargers must Charger. But what I'm saying is, like, the Chargers are a very good team. but you should be able to fight a good team better than that. You did just last week. You at least showed life against the Eagles, even though that score was way closer than it had any right to be. But they just overthink everything. Flores is overthinking. Kwesi is overthinking. O'Connell is overthinking. Somebody needs to just get a big cartoon, like Roadrunner style Bugs Bunny mallet and just knock all three of those guys upside the head. And just maybe, there's too many brain cells. You got to get rid of some of them. Just knock those guys upside the head and see if maybe they can just play like a normal team. That's what I want to see the Vikings attempt. Just play like a normal team. Run zone. Run your pass concepts. Keep other additional players in protection if you can't protect the quarterback. You know what I see the other team doing every time the Vikings play? Because they're so worried about pressure from Brian Flores and all his blitzes. They're keeping 6-7 in protection. That's not always my favorite thing to do because you want to have more routes going on. It doesn't do you any good to have 8 in protection if you only have 2 guys down the field and neither of them get open because they can all be triple teamed, right? But you've got to give more help on the edges when you got both your backup tackles in. You can't just leave those guys in 5-man protection. What are you doing? How do you think this is okay? How do you put hours and hours and hours and hours of thought into ideas like let's not practice and let's take all of our edge rushers off the field? But you can't give help to your backups who are struggling. Every other team can handle this problem. Every team has O-linemen go down. Tackles go down all the time. Guards go down all the time. Everybody finds a way to protect those guys. But for some reason, the Vikings can't do it. They can't solve the problems everybody else can solve. That makes you a bottom 5 team. But what I want to do is look at this moving forward. Because whether you like it or not, the Vikings are playing 10 more games this year. Carson Wentz is not scheduled to start any of them. I say not scheduled to because who knows what happens, right? But he is not scheduled to start any of them. And that means that the Vikings get an opportunity for a little bit of a reset and to go back into the mode of, okay, young quarterback, let's rally around him and try to make life comfortable for your backup quarterback and then say, okay, McCarthy, let's go be the energy that this needs. So how does this turn around? That's what I want to talk about next on Locked On Vikings. Today's eulogy is brought to you by Mazda's Moving the Game Forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than just put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. This week's moment that moved the game forward is given to you by Beelzebub for, at a certain point, mercifully ending your life on this mortal coil. No, I'm just kidding. I do want to give one praise to someone. I will give this Player of the Week award to Jalen Redmond, who seems to be the only guy that showed up for this game. He had his level of disruption in the middle. He had some really nice plays in the run as well. Somebody disrupting something, and he caused the pressure that eventually led to the Vikings' only turnover that they've had since September, which went to Josh Metellus. That is where I am going to put the Moving the Game Forward Player of the Week. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Before I go into future mode, there's one more thing from this game that I do want to mention. It's the pick 6 at the beginning that wasn't. It was kind of funny. I got to think the broadcast must have said that they thought it was a catch or something because I saw everybody was super unanimous about it. And in the stadium, I was surrounded by Vikings and Chargers fans alike that were all oh, that's not a catch. We were all very sure. So I have to think because whenever it's something like that where I'm at a game where I have the game on mute or whatever and I think something is super apparent and then I see everyone unanimously has the opposite opinion, it's always because that's what the broadcast says. And I'm going to be honest with a lot of you. Some of y'all just couch what the broadcast says and pass it off as your own opinion. All right. I'm not, look in the mirror. Okay. I'm not giving any accusations at anybody in particular. And I'm not saying that I disrespect you over it, but I do think, hey, I'm asking you, look in the mirror and ask, are these my thoughts or did I just steal that from Greg Olson? Okay. Sorry. I don't think that it was a catch. I think they made the right call there. I'm probably, going to be told I'm in the wrong by a whole bunch of people that couch their opinion from Kirk Herbstreit. Okay, how do the Vikings turn this around? How do they go forward in this season? Because there's turning the season around and becoming a contender and all that. That's out of the question right now. I'm sorry, but actually like making a push at playoff position is currently not on the table. You have to prove that you can walk before you can run. To me, this next stretch of the season, Detroit, Baltimore, Chicago, this next like 3 games is about getting your feet back under you and looking like a semi-normal football team. If they go into Detroit, and even if they lose, if it's competitive, if it's close, if it's, if it's a game that you walk away feeling like you're watching an NFL team again instead of just getting drummed, if they get killed by 40, heads start rolling, right? They got to just get their feet back under them. And I think that's what this is. So how do you do that? And I think the first thing is you've now got 10 days. Obviously, part of it is get healthy. You hope that Brian O'Neill can get rid of some of that knee soreness. He sits out this game because of apparently soreness in his left knee, because playing through the MCL sprain, his body compensated and overworked his left knee, which is actually a pretty common thing that happens when you play on an injury. But again, just a completely self-inflicted wound from the Vikings. You didn't have to do that. You could have not played Brian O'Neill. You would have lost the game anyways. But like you were playing Justin School all season long in place of Brian O'Neill. You did not have to rush him back after that bye, but you rushed him back. Let him sit, right? Chill over the bye. Same with Christian Darrisaw. You didn't have to rush him back and make this worse, but you did. Now, hopefully, we're past that. And of course, getting JJ McCarthy back is huge. Not to mention, hopefully you can see something from like Andrew Van Ginkel. You can get back to full health for guys like Donovan Jackson, other guys that have been like playing through stuff, right? You can hopefully restabilize that. Maybe even get Ryan Kelly off of IR. We're getting to that point too. Restabilize and hopefully get a bunch of your lineup back, because a lot of the problems caused in this game were caused by backups that weren't supposed to be in. But I think greater than that, you probably need to look at your coaching staff if you're Kevin O'Connell. I don't think seats are like hot yet. I think you need a little bit more sustained ineptitude than this. They don't get hot off of like singular bad games. You walk away from that Eagles game and at least they were competitive, right? And you've had other good moments this year. You're not going to start firing people after winning a game against the Browns. But this is the one that opens the door to that. And if you do show up to Ford Field and walk out with a 40 burger dumped on your head, then you start asking questions. But I don't think anyone's seat is hot yet on the high level. On the low level, this is where you start looking at stuff like, is Wes Phillips in the right place? Should he be in the booth or the sideline? Do we have the right people in the headset? Should we maybe not have some people able to talk in the headset? Do we have the right people, managing substitutions? Should I change the way that I'm communicating play calls? I mean, these are fundamental things, but they're the kind of things you can rethink and adjust on the fly. Whereas, like, you can't fire a position coach on the fly and just expect a group to get better. The work done in camp is kind of going to decide a lot of that stuff. And that's where I get what everybody's saying. Everybody wants to fire Kwesi, fire O'Connell, fire everybody. And coming off of a game like this, I get that sentiment. I really do. It feels like that kind of game. The kind of game that if you drop 3 in a row after this, you look back at this one and go, that one broke them. But I think the process and logistical stuff is worth questioning right now. And if it continues to go poorly, I do think heads may roll. Maybe even just a sacrificial lamb. But it doesn't do a lot for me. Like, if I wake up tomorrow and Wes Phillips is fired, who cares? Why would I care? Does that really feel like they're doing something? Like, oh, that'll fix it. He was the problem. No, it doesn't at all. It doesn't fix anything. And that's where I'm always at with don't just look at every problem like a nail as if you only have a hammer, right? And that's why I'm always kind of like, fire a guy's not a great idea. Even in games that are fireable, what is the problem that is solving? What is the root of the problem? And are there any other ways you can solve it? It's always a good question to answer. But I think beyond that, you have to get out of your head. And I really think the Vikings are on tilt. They're in their head. This is when you start making mistakes, is when you start getting so wrapped up in layers of, well, I did do this, but the run defense was bad. So then I did that, but then the pass defense was bad. So maybe I'll do this, but I can't make the run defense bad again. So maybe I'll do it in a different way. And maybe I'll pull that guy because that'll make it a little different. And you're so wrapped up in like layers and layers and layers and layers of your own ifs and buts that you start making baffling decisions, like not practicing. Baffling decisions. Yeah, physical game in a Thursday night. Somebody plays on Thursday night every week. They all practice. Every week someone goes on the road on Thursday night. I'm going insane. So I think you have to get out of your own head and decompress, take a minute to just find a way to freshen your perspective and go back to basics. I've been asking for this for the Vikings for a while, to go back to basics. Go back to starting the best 11 players that you have. Go back, not just taking off the two smallest players because you're afraid they're going to run the ball today. No, start the best players that you have and find a way to make it work with them. Get the right 11 out there. Get the right players out there before the play clock. Break the huddle at 18 seconds instead of 10, which is, by the way, was a huge problem again tonight. The huddles broke late and they were super late on all that stuff. Like, get your operation together because this team is way too talented to be a bottom 5 team in the league. But that's exactly what they are. A talented bottom 5 team. Not an acceptable place to be. You have to fix it. Kevin, Kwesi, Brian, Wes, all of you, figure it out. That's your job. And if you can't do your job, we'll find somebody who can. I'll talk to y'all next week. And as always,